Hello, my friends. I really wanted to have a conversation with Cauvin and get his thoughts on what the Supreme Court decided and the debate failure. Of course, he was with us on debate night, and I just love listening to his podcast, Rain on Your Parade, which you should go subscribe to. And, of course, making podcasts great again as well, jlcauvin.com. Get him to do a cameo for you. We all love JL. I just thought it'd be great to talk to him. I wanted to give you something to listen to on your July 4th drive, and I'm dropping it early as the Friday show. So I get a little bit obsessed with making sure I drop a new show every day. Even though I'm dropping it early on the 4th, it is the Friday show, the 5th of July program, in case anybody's keeping track. Some of you guys are even more obsessed than I am about the numbers thing. So thank you very much for listening, supporting JL. I hope you love our conversation. It's great, as always, in my opinion. Here we go. Look who I found on the 4th of July, my good friend and the host of a great podcast, Rain on Your Parade. It's JL Cauvin. Hi.
Great to be here on Jesus Christ's real birthday, the 4th of July.
Oh, is that a MAGA theory?
Probably. I don't know that it is. It's at some point we'll merge these things into just Christian Nationalism Day. It's the day America and Christ were born. Like someday we'll just, America will merge those two things into one holiday. The way like Christians adopted pagan holidays to make them fit the calendar, like so people would be used to them. That's what we'll do with Christ and the founders.
Didn't the Mormons basically, didn't their God, wasn't he born here?
I believe so. Yeah, he definitely showed up in, I want to say Missouri.
I think that's right. We'll have to look that up. We'll have to check on South Park and see what
that's a tough one. I take the South Park stance because I have a lot of nice Latter-day Saint fans.
Yeah.
And I take some of this is certainly kooky even to a Catholic, but you know what? I've had nothing but great interactions with your people.
Same. I've had nothing. You know. I've met so many. One Mormon who I really liked and thought was really nice was a guy named Tim Ballard, who turned out to be
he's Sound of Freedom guy, right? He's Sound of Freedom guy.
The Sound of Freedom guy. I interviewed him at Sirius. I was like, wow, he seems so nice. And now he seems quite suspect. But no, all the Mormons I've met, other than
there's 9 billion children sex trafficked every month.
According to Tim Ballard, I'm guessing.
It just the stats always seem quite wait. Does that mean every other kid is currently being sex trafficked?
You have to ask yourself, when I've always talked about this with other parents in my community and other way, they all get scared of their kids going to get kidnapped. And I always say to people, I understand the fear. Of course I do. It's a realistic fear. You shouldn't spend a lot of time on it. But do you know anybody who's ever had their kid kidnapped? Do you know anybody who knows anybody who's had their kid kidnapped? You don't. It's not a thing that happens very often. And it calms people down generally. And then they point to one kid who gets kidnapped and see, and you're like, you know what? You're right. You shouldn't go outside. JL, you go outside on July 4th. You liked Independence Day. You must be a guy who goes across the state lines and buys fireworks and then brings them back and launches them off with your buddies and drinks beer and has a good old time. I suspect you that guy.
And this year, what I'm actually doing is strapping fireworks to a case of Bud Light. For an extra American Day. Now, 4th of July to me, it's like I like hot dogs and hamburgers and a day off, and it's a big day. Obviously, it's so many things in this country. It feels weaponized now. You can't just be, hey, America, pretty good. Like, I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I was born here. I'm glad, hey, mom from America, dad from a foreign country. I'm the American dream, etc. It's just become this sort of just like. I joked about the Christian nationalism thing, but it is the same thing. The same way Christianity has been weaponized into this thing. So like patriotism is now this rhetorical weapon, it would seem.
Yeah, no, it seems to be. It's a very virtue signaling thing with the flags waving on your trucks, or even you might argue outside your home. Now people think if you got a flag waving outside your home, does that mean you're more of a MAGA person? And that's a shame. I think I'm not a big flag waving guy. When we bought a house in the suburbs, it came with a little flagpole thing and a flag. And I didn't put it out. It was during the Bush administration. And then to signal to my neighbors who I was when I first moved in there, I did put it out when Obama was elected for a few days. And then I took it back down. And now what hangs out there is a Toronto Raptors flag, just to confuse people.
Oh, nice. I thought it might be upside down in solidarity with Mrs. Alito.
Some people are also flying Christian nationalist flags. Let's get into your last 3 episodes of your great podcast, because 3 episodes ago, you talked about President Biden and his prospects and your thoughts
Boy,
on
oh
it.
boy, has that not aged. No, I think it still stands. The podcast still stands, but that debate performance, it's unfit. I've said it before. I say it I think on my most recent episode. You see a man, he's both the oldest person to ever be in the White House, and he's also an empathetic person, because you can look at Trump, who was old when he entered the White House, but he doesn't care. So it's not going to age him, whereas Joe Biden is all about caring. So empathy plus 78 years plus 4 years in the White House you're going to age as badly as an older person can age without disease.
Interesting to connect the having of empathy.
Look at Trump. He looks the same. Honestly, I can't tell the difference between maybe a little bit more speech slurring, but in terms of his energy, his makeup
But if you don't care about anybody or anything, you don't worry, and so you don't age.
His only 2 times he looked haggard in the last decade were when he lost the election, that famous photo of him with the tie undone walking back from the helicopter to the White House. And then when he lost, when he was convicted of 34 charges, he looked slumped and depressed. But other than that, it's just because he only cares about his personal benefits. So if he's doing well, and then he couldn't be stressed. Too blessed to be stressed, Donald Trump.
So let's get into where we are on July 4th, and people will probably listen to this today or tomorrow, hopefully, based on your analysis and thoughts right now. What are you seeing in terms of how do you separate or talk about the difference between some of the people who go on television and say what they say and why they say it about President Biden, should he stay in, should he drop out, the prospects, the people who write things on social media, and the rest of us who are trying to have a thoughtful conversation? Because my stance has been, I don't have a strong stance. I don't know. I want to first get read in on the process and the conventions and the delegates and the Constitution. I want to understand how Republicans are going to fight back in courts and try to keep anybody else off the ballot. I want to understand how bad is Joe Biden? Does he do a few more interviews, give him a week or so? And I want to know all those things. And some people are screaming, if you don't say anything but support Joe Biden right now, you're gaslighting. I don't even know what the word gaslighting means anymore, because everybody's doing it. So what are your thoughts on the morning here of July 4th about how everybody's talking about this before we analyze what needs to be done?
Yeah, in a perfect world, I think Joe Biden would have announced 2 years in that he's not running again, and he would have been a caretaker, successful, not just a caretaker presidency, but a successful caretaker president. And we could have had this full campaign process. But I think the risk you take when you elect somebody who's 78 years old with the most votes ever is that he's going to age. He's going to age in a way we've never seen a president age before. And I think maybe Biden was always going to run for re-election, but as somebody with an ego, I really think him only getting this sort of credit for what he's done as an effort to be he's done so much, now he should move on. He never seemed to get that credit even in the midst of his successes. You could ask an AOC or Governor Phil Murphy in Jersey or all these people who will you endorse Joe Biden for a second term? Nobody's ever a successful first-term president. When have the members of their own party ever been asked, will you endorse him for a second term? Now, nobody was saying the age issue. Now, if they had said it as an age issue, but they kept saying, will you endorse him? And it was a lot of people were like, if he runs, I will. Or in the case of some of the squad, I have to see. So it created this sort of, after a successful first part of his term, this kind of, I'm sure he felt a little resentment to be do you realize what I've done? When LBJ did what I did, he won did he do that after re-election? No, he won a landslide after the Civil Rights Act. You know what I mean? He didn't, and then he got the Voting Rights Act. And it wasn't until Vietnam that he was bounced. I think Biden probably resented that, and maybe his ego got in the way and he decided to run. Maybe he really felt he could run again. But I think people are in this sort of this disillusioned state of, we should have had a convention. First of all, if you jump over Kamala Harris, you're going to have problems, whether you do it now or whether you do it when she's the vice president of a successful Democratic president. that it doesn't have to be a coronation, but if she doesn't have if she doesn't lose it, then it would normally be hers in terms of if she performs horribly, hey, that's on you. But if she performs admirably and gets the endorsement of Joe Biden, and I think sadly, what I would say and what I think some people would calculate is let's say Gavin Newsom comes in and wows the convention. Joe Biden steps down and Gavin Newsom wows the convention. I think a lot of people, if you put them up to a lie detector, would say it would be great if we could have our Black woman vice president as the nominee, but I don't think she's going to win. And I don't think Black women at the end of the day will abandon us, because they don't abandon us because they vote more than anybody like their rights depend on it.
You don't think your analysis is that if they pass over, somehow Kamala gets passed over, that Black women and Black folks in general wouldn't abandon the white male nominee? Would not. They would come out and support.
I think anybody, here's what I would say. Anybody who would vote for Joe Biden would not abandon them. And I don't say that lightly to take it for granted. I just think it's a catch-22. We should reward our most loyal base, and we certainly shouldn't disrespect our Black woman vice president, which will be taken as a disrespect to our most loyal demographic. But at the end of the day, like I said, if you ask somebody, I think what the risk they'd be taking would be, I don't think they will abandon the ticket in favor of Trump.
All right. That's analysis that's super interesting. I haven't quite heard it, and I'm more interested to hear from.
Oh, you're rolling the dice. You're rolling the dice. I'm speaking specifically of Black women. I think Black men have proven a lot more fickle and a lot more. I have a joke on Half Blackface where I said, I think if your demographic votes 25% or more for Donald Trump, you shouldn't be allowed to say the N-word. This was a joke about Latin men. But then I said, but Black men voted 18% for Trump in 2020. 7% more, and all of a sudden rap is a very different genre. So I think Black men have proven, for a variety of reasons, much more amenable to ignoring Biden or supporting Trump, whereas Black women.
Well, I'm interested to see polling and focus groups on Black women, Black folks in general, on how they would feel about and how they would vote given any scenario where Kamala Harris would be passed over. But let me ask you this. Have you seen any analysis?
And I don't say that, I'm just going to say, I don't say that lightly. Oh, pish posh, they'll come back. Who cares? It's more, I think, sadly, they would be there'd be a little bit more taken for granted.
Sure.
Because when it comes down to Gavin Newsom versus Trump in the first week of November 2024, I think a lot of people will say, I don't like it. I don't like that Kamala was treated that way, but what am I going to do? I know what Trump can do. I know that Gavin Newsom's our better shot.
I don't know. I'll say I don't know about that. And I also don't know about how legally they could get around Kamala Harris. So we're not even there yet. It could happen within days. What are you reading, seeing, hearing about how the Biden administration is handling this? And again, you didn't answer my question about how we are talking about it.
Okay, I don't like it. I feel like Joe Biden died. I feel like the coverage has been so nonstop that if Joe Biden passed away today, he would be the exact same percentage of news coverage. And I think that's a problem. In other words, this is starting to feed itself a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a problem. We all saw the debate. It was a terrible debate performance, and they're not doing enough to reassure people, I think, because
the administration, they're not. Biden is not.
I agree with where is he? If it was a cold and he's feeling better, why isn't he out here taking questions? And I get an older president not doing as many press conferences. He's done very few. But I get an older president being like, I'm conserving my energy. I'm not Mr. Slick on the podium anymore, but I'm in my capacity as leader and decision maker. I'm just using all my energy for those roles. This is the time where you got to come out and at least, you're not going to look like Joe Biden in 2008 or 1988, but you got to show something that looks better than the debate. Like that rally in Raleigh, which was a teleprompter, but I was shocked at the difference in less than a day. But I do think at the same time, the coverage is becoming like cannibalistic. They are feasting on the still warm body of Joe Biden's presidency.
He's going to be on television the 5th of July with George Stephanopoulos. ABC will pick what excerpts to put out, and then I guess the full thing will come out on Sunday, which is bullshit in itself. Just give it to us. It's relevant. Every minute matters. And if he has a great interview, if he's got it all together, it's another news cycle to just examine that, to create question. But it would seem, my friend, that the sharks are in the water. There's Democratic congressmen that are on record. There's a bunch of op-eds being written that you can't take back. And so then you've got the polling, and the polling seems to be the only thing that matters. If he craters in the polls, which it seems he certainly is starting to lose more than he should after a good run, then that's it. So is it already over?
I don't know. I'm usually more certain than that one way or the other, but I don't know, because I'm in a position where I'm like, okay, if it's Kamala Harris, good. Here's my money. Here's my vote. Let's go. But I think I've been so pleased with the Biden administration for the most part that it's like, I joked on my podcast that maybe he's like Gandalf. Like, yes, he's not the youngest, most vigorous, but there's wisdom. There's a type of leadership. The decisions end with him, and I've been pretty satisfied with the decision. If you want to, George Bush called himself the decider. Hey, if Joe Biden's role is as decider in chief, I've been happy with the decisions he's made. So I wish people could appreciate that more, but he looked really atrocious in that debate. And it was the kind of stuff in nursing homes, which doesn't inspire.
You have said everywhere from the stand-up comedy stage in DC to our hangout there tonight to my podcast and yours, you have commented on Joe Biden's physical appearance and how dead he looks, and you've made jokes. I feel like at this point it's just to give you cover so you can say similar things about women.
Oh, I've got literally an album ready to go if Kamala Harris becomes president.
Okay, so let me move on to something that is I actually want to keep talking about this, and I'm part of the problem in watching the TikTok of it all. I'm trying not to cover it too much, and that's why I'm shifting gears with you, because we'll know soon who's going to be on the ticket. We'll know soon if Biden's going to stay, or maybe it's going to take a while. But what we do know is what's happened at the Supreme Court. You've got a new episode dropping of Rain on Your Parade about that. We've got two big decisions that dropped at the end of the term. Of course, immunity, potentially making the president a king, and the Chevron case, which people's ears and eyes glaze over, but could perhaps create a situation where you turn on your faucet and plastic comes flying out of it, or you're not even allowed to buy an electric car, or any number
now all Americans live in black neighborhoods.
And also, you're not allowed to force people to be vaccinated to go to school. So we're all going to get measles, and you can't check the cows and the chicken eggs, and you name the agency, your planes are going to start falling out of the sky because they're taped together because no one's checking up. That is how I'm trying to talk about that case. But let's talk. Which one do you want to take first? Immunity, making Trump
you pick.
king?
I'm good. Let's go immunity.
Let's go immunity for 200.
Yeah. I think my problem with this court, with these Republicans, is that it's my same problem with libertarians and with far left people, like really far left, is that it's good to think things in theory. It's good to have sort of philosophies and the way you frame things and the way, and I know that Supreme Court justices, as far as judges go, have to have the broadest, most aerial view of things because they're making constitutional law. They're not just deciding one case for one person, unless, of course, it's Bush v. Gore. But they live in this theory world that is, and I forget which founding father said it, but the Constitution is not a suicide pact. In other words, at some point, the real world has to factor in to the decisions you're making, to the way you interpret law. It's not a suicide pact. It's not, oh, yes, it's letter of the law, text, whatever excuse we want to use, originalist, textualist bullshit. But hey, we don't make the law. Hey, if our proper reading of the Constitution means that millions will die, then we don't blame the messenger. We're just doing our job as umpires and as interpreters of this sacred text known as the Constitution. And I look at things like Chevron and I go, you don't live in the real world. Some of you do, and you're just shills for corporate America. There is that element. I have no doubt that Clarence Thomas and Neil Gorsuch are like sort of scummy dudes, and Alito too, but more personally.
And judges at lower levels too, including the ones that are going to be making these decisions instead of scientists at EPA. Go ahead with the point, though.
Right. But it's like you don't live. You're either ignoring the real world consequences of what you're doing, or you're aware of it and don't care. And I know there's a balance of, yes, you can't, just because something bad happens to somebody doesn't mean that is proper constitutional law. But in the case of Chevron, it flies in the face of so many doctrines in terms of the reliance, in terms of just having a functioning government in a complicated world. This is even more than guns, originalists' kind of interpretation for a 2024 America and all that it requires to run efficiently and properly and safely. You can't apply some sort of farm and musket mindset to that world. And they seem content to do that. And the reason I compared it to like libertarians and like far left progressives is there's this sort of like the idea, those are the people who are like the perfect, I don't care if the perfect is the enemy of the good. I want the perfect. I want the strict text. So regardless of what happens, that we don't care. And it's the same thing I talked about I think on your show about gun control, gun rights activists or gun nuts, which is the more kids that die in an ironic, sad way, the more it validates the more they're willing to look past or accept kids dying, the more it actually bolsters their, see, I am principled. Because of course I don't want kids to die, but I'm so principled. I'm so Abraham willing to kill his own son to satisfy God that look at how principled I am. If kids die, I still stick to we must have guns principle. And these judges on the court are like, no, if the country burns, if planes fall from the sky, if families start dying from food poisoning, that's not our fault. We're principled. So yay, look at us. We did it. We're great judges and justices and principled people because we're willing to sacrifice all these things to stand by our version of textualism and an originalism.
That's an analysis on the attitude of these justices, those that voted for this, on the issue regarding the agencies in the Chevron case, why they think they can get away with it.
I said we were going to start with immunity, didn't I?
It's fine. No, it's because I went off on my rant about what it means for these different agencies.
Gotcha. Immunity is it is the same thing because it's this, hey, and they love couching it in terms of, hey, Joe Biden is safe from prosecution now. And it's, oh, good. Because we were all worried about Joe Biden's abuse of all. Right. We're saying that he's sleeping at the desk. And now all of a sudden you want to that is gaslighting. That's gaslighting, being like, hey, guys, hey, liberals who don't like this decision. Guess what? The elderly man who feeds pigeons and is taking naps during the day, he's going to be free from criminal prosecuation too.
Right. But very few people are making that point. It's not
no. I heard Trump made that point. He said, I think Biden it's even better for Biden. So that is, if Trump's making the point, it's weaseled its way through the right wing ecosystem.
Yeah, but yes and no. It's just ridiculous, right? Because this.
Oh, it's ridiculous, but that's the way you make it.
But it's not. But it may not be true because if Trump were to get elected and then he wanted to go after Biden, the Supreme Court would just rule differently. You know what? That was something that was wrong. You can't do what he did.
Joe Biden signing a bill is actually not one of his official duties. Right. That was actually rogue. A new doctrine of rogue presidency.
That analysis is even the Supreme Court will decide whatever they want to decide when the majority are cartoon villains.
As I always say, it's not a court.
That's hilarious. You and a couple of other people that I know I'm talking to. So on immunity, this decision is very consequential.
Disgraceful. Like it's so easy. It's so transparently disgraceful. Like and I would say the Amy Coney Barrett where she separates is so telling, because the idea of not, and I know you've talked about this with Professor Siegel, but the idea of, oh no, you can't even bring this up. Like you can't even bring this up as evidence, got 5 votes. So that's law. That is constitutional law that, hey, if Trump is on a phone call with a foreign leader and is committing crimes with that foreign leader, hey, you can't even bring up what he was talking about on that call with the foreign leader, even if he was saying
motivation, the question of motivation.
Could you tell Joe Biden for me when he visits Ukraine? It's no, technically he was talking leader to leader. That's an official duty. So you can't even bring evidence of what was on that phone call. That's scary, because I can understand and disagree with a sort of broad official duty immunity. That, like a lot of things, I may disagree, but that makes sense. That seems like something you can argue for in terms of a president doing their duty. You can make that argument and I won't laugh at it. But the idea of but if you commit crimes during what are your official duties? You can't even bring that into court to discuss that as evidence.
Yeah, Nixon and the break-in at the Watergate Hotel. That was clearly not his official duty. Clearly a conspiracy, a crime, a very textbook. And that's why he had to go. And then he was later pardoned, of course. But that John Dean was on and said, no, he didn't think, based on this Supreme Court decision, that would have been a crime, and Nixon would still probably be president.
To this day.
To this day, because he would have then packed the court. What do you make of Elie Mystal and others saying, run now on packing the court? Right now, start saying it, because some people say that you shouldn't be running on it because it could scare people from voting for the Democrat.
For whatever reason, the court feels like a loser for Democrats. And I don't get it. I don't get why Republicans were able to just be like, the court matters to like rank and file Republicans. They understand that. Yeah. Because of abortion, they realize they put 2 and 2 together. Whereas Democrats took it all for granted. And I've said this to you before, the Democrats never get, and I said this on the Joe Biden episode of Rain on Your Parade, Democrats never get credit for the defense they play. It's all about offense. It's all about what are you getting done. But Democrats have for decades been the thing stopping the erosion of rights, which sometimes is just as important as gaining new rights or gaining new things. Is like keeping progress where it is can sometimes be the best you can do in this structure of government. And it wasn't until Roe v. Wade went away that it was like, now do you see you can't just take for granted the things Democrats have fought for and assume that you can vote on taxes and wokeism in your middle school. Like you actually have to still consider the environment, abortion, things like that you just go, you know what? I don't think they'll really come for that. They did. And they're going to come for more stuff in a second Trump term. But the court, I would endorse that now, of course. Yes, let's get 13 judges. Or I know Siegel would say maybe an even number, which is it's not a bad idea from him to do because none of these 5-4 decisions. And there's something to that. There's something to, just like a jury, you can't have a 6-5 jury win in a trial. There has to be at best like a 10-2, if not unanimous. But the court thing, independents, the annoying independents who really, I think, love their role would probably be like, Joe Biden's gone too radical. That's an AOC squad idea. So I would endorse it. I would endorse saying nothing and trying to win and then doing it as soon as you win, as soon as you're a lame duck president, if you have the votes. Once again, if you have the votes in the Senate and the House.
So the last thing I want to ask you is about another recent episode of your podcast. You interviewed one of the directors of this. Producers of this documentary, which Andrew Seidel, Americans United, mentioned. Our friend Will Judy, I think, has been promoting this. And tell me about...
Have you had Andrew Seidel on your show?
Oh, several times.
Oh, he's in the movie.
Yeah.
And I talk about him during the podcast. And I'm like, that con law professor, he must do pretty well with the ladies or the gents, whatever his preference is.
I think he's married. Yeah, he's a good looking guy. He's got good hair.
And good
But he's married
voice and command of the Constitution. I was like, this guy should be on more things.
God and Country, themovie.com. You hosted or you're hosting a watch party?
It's not a watch party. You can basically, in the show notes for that episode, there's a link that's good for 3 more weeks where it's the same price to rent it through our link as it is like on Amazon or any VOD platform. But the podcast gets like a little percentage of each rental through us. So it's the kind of thing, if you're going to watch it through our link.
There you go. So you talked to the producer, but you watched the film. Your mom watched the film.
Yeah.
What is something that you learned or take away from this? And we talk a little bit about Christian nationalism.
I think how central it was to sort of January 6th was very interesting to me. And Steve, the producer, had said on the episode, he was like, because I've been working in the sort of Christian community and entertainment world for so long, I immediately recognized so many of those flags and symbols as part of a Christian nationalist movement. I think it was very interesting, the history of it. And some of it, plenty of the stuff was stuff I knew, especially in terms of history, in terms of the Constitution and everything. But it was the way the documentary synthesized everything, and also hearing from a lot of evangelical Christians, many of them right-wing, who've like stepped back, because I think that's the same way I'll sing Mitt Romney's praises a lot, despite not agreeing with him on a lot of things. I think there were a lot of big-time evangelicals who really spoke out in this movie and drew that very sharp line of, yes, I'm a pro-life Christian,
right,
but I'm a real deal pro-life Christian. Like, I really believe in supporting mothers and a little bit more of a liberal welfare state. I'm not the sort of political Christian that you see so much of. But it was very interesting because, like, David French, who's a conservative who is a columnist for the New York Times, he is like an unabashed Biden supporter because he's just, it's democracy. Like, these things are being blurred. And I don't, as a Christian and as an American, I don't like seeing this politicized, like, violent strain of Christianity that all of a sudden is becoming like ascendant in the Republican Party.
Right.
So I just thought, not only was it interesting to hear from those people and to see some of the connections to January 6th, but I was most impressed, I think, that in 90 minutes, it's an incredibly tight, informative, and entertaining and comprehensive. You get the separation of church and state explained to you by Andrew Seidel. And he even says in the documentary, he says, are we a Christian nation in that we have a lot of Christians? Yes. Are we a Christian nation in that Christians and Christianity have helped shape our culture in many ways? Yes. Are we a Christian nation in that the founders based our government and our society on Christianity? Absolutely not. And Reza Aslan says something in the movie that I thought was like a perfect tag for the movie, which is this movement is not about Christian values. It's about Christian power. And I was like, if I were to sum up from watching this movie, that's how I would sum it up. It's not about Christian values. And I think anybody, atheist, Christian, whatever, that looks at this through objective lens can see, this has nothing to do with Jesus or anything Jesus said or any sort of real values. This has to do with branding yourselves as Christians because that's a dominant cultural force, and then acting like vengeful Old Testament assholes.
I can't wait to see it. I'll put your link, if it works, in the show notes.
Oh yeah, it works for a couple more weeks. So it's in the show notes of the
I'll
episode.
Put it in the show notes for today's episode
Cool.
with you.
Thank you.
Finally, what makes you feel patriotic? How do you feel about patriotism in general? You're like a Mel Gibson, The Patriot fan. You probably have answer that question first, and then I'll allow you to talk about some kind of music, television, or film.
I'm not only a Mel Gibson patriot, I'm a Mel Gibson Catholic. So I'm double the Mel Gibson. I think what makes me feel like I don't feel super patriotic. I will say this. When I see some old troop, some old veteran, I feel like nice. Like I feel they make me feel good. Or when I remember when George Bush visited the troops in Iraq, like on Thanksgiving, the George W. Bush, and obviously I was against the war and I was not a fan of George W. Bush, but when they showed that, like him surprising the troops, me and my brother and mom all saw that on the news. And me and my brother were both like, hey, that's pretty cool. That's nice that the people, whether it's a misguided war or not, the people sacrificing their lives for whatever they're told is democracy or freedom it's cool.
The closest I thought it was a political stunt and I was disgusted by it. But the closest I can.
But for them, I'm saying for the troops, I'm sure it felt good.
For sure it did. And
yeah, that's what I mean. So I was like happy for the troops. I wasn't like, oh, Bush is the man. But my mom, of course, saw that. Me and my brother, I was like, that's pretty cool. And my mom said, fuck him. Meaning Bush, not them. Fuck him.
I like when a veteran shows up and surprises his or her spouse or a child or parent. I like those movies. That's
and as somebody who makes content for the internet, I always watch those and go, I don't believe this was spontaneous.
For sure. And is there a movie, film, or television show that you think does a good job depicting American history, any genre from the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, World War II? Anything jump out about that?
I'll tell you what tears me up.
The John Adams HBO miniseries I like a lot. No.
Ken Burns' The Civil War. And the episode that tears me up is the way he does the Emancipation Proclamation, like that episode. I like get teary-eyed. Because they're playing Glory Hallelujah, and it's like a slave or an freedman reading a quote from them and panning over photos. And it's just Ken Burns, obviously his great work on those early documentaries was like, there's no video. That's what sort of made them so genius, is that it's pictures and narration, and you make these things into moving portraits of history. That, for some reason, that always got me. The Emancipation Proclamation, if you think about it, for all the people who hate 1619 Project, and 1776. No, we were founded in 1776. Wouldn't 1863 at least make a more unassailable but different day of freedom for the country? Like 1860, at least, I know, and yes, anybody can say, what about 1964? I know, but 1863 is at least when the hypocrisy in some ways at least slightly ended, in terms of now all people are free.
Yeah, no, I like your points.
Or the 13th Amendment, or the 14th Amendment, or 15th Amendment, something where, except of course women weren't allowed to vote with that. It's like right. The Emancipation Proclamation or the 13th Amendment would strike me as slightly more things to honor as freedom. I know what 1776 is, but I'd be curious to see if the angry patriots out there would be like, because I get their whole thing with 1619. But if you said 1863, I'm celebrating that as our Independence Day, who would be the one who'd go, that's bullshit? I'm like, no, that's when Lincoln freed the slaves. Why can't that be we got that much closer to living the words of the Declaration of Independence that day?
Maybe if you just wouldn't talk about race.
Yeah,
we wouldn't have to bring up.
It's really the race hustlers who are ruining America, not the racists.
That's the people who are a race hustler, someone who leverages racist theory.
That's right. And like I said, I have a new bit where I talk about if Bon Jovi and Bruce Springsteen would just sprinkle in some working class Latino references into their songs instead of like Jersey white people. I thought maybe we start to change the culture's perception of what a working class person is. Because I said Tommy and Gina, for as much as we love Living on a Prayer, they are without a doubt 80s, like South Jersey white Italians. Those are scumbags. And I said in a bit, they were probably throwing shit at Al Sharpton at a rally in the 80s. I don't want them to succeed.
There might need to be some younger artists than Bon Jovi and Springsteen to reach to that new generation, especially younger. Yeah.
It'd be nice. I think because if that's what I joked with the crowd, but I said, we think of working class, close your eyes. And I want you to say what first pops into your head. And I said, I bet you everybody in this room, white, black, or whatever, probably had this like white guy in a factory with a mustache, like building a car, or like just in terms of how we've been culturally programmed to think about working class.
I immediately think of Danny Glover, but that's just me.
Okay. Yeah, he's definitely working class.
I'm not sure what role I'm thinking of him in playing, but I feel like
best friends with Mel Gibson for 5 movies. What range? He played. He was in 5 movies with Mel Gibson and also played Mandela.
Serious activist, serious leftist, Danny Glover. Always has been. Yeah. Very outspoken guy his whole life. I bet you he and Mel Gibson don't talk a lot anymore. Maybe they do.
It's Mel Gibson, I think. I don't know. I don't know that he was always like that. He might have just gone crazy.
JL, always great to talk with you. Thank you very much for joining me on the 4th of July. Go listen to Rain on Your Parade next, everybody.
Thanks.
All right. There he goes, JL Cauvin. How did you like that one? I hope you liked it. Give you something else to listen to from the stand-up world on this Friday and Saturday, well, Thursday even, and through the weekend. I'm dropping it on Thursday. I'm not making any sense. Happy July 4th. I hope you had a great Independence Day and took some time off and enjoyed some good food and friends as we head into a pretty tough time, obviously, with this country. So glad to be heading into it with you. Couldn't do it without you, and love you guys. All right, I'm leaving. Jon Carroll, take over. Sing to us.
Begin, they had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We got to let him know it's his time to go and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment. If you stand up, alright, we got to speak up, we got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run there.